Hey, my kindergarten friends, are you ready for another art lesson this week? I know I'm excited to teach you another art lesson. So let's get started. Our theme is shadows this week, and so what we're going to do is you are going to have the opportunity to create a sort of little mini self-portrait of yourself. And then if you'll notice, this is a long shadow of this girl shape, and then this is a short shadow of this girl shape. If you are a girl, you'll use this printout. If you are a boy, you are going to use this printout. And this is also a, these are also some silhouettes of some different animals that I will explain later what you can use these for. So for now though, I'm just going to put these aside. And the only other thing you're going to need today is a couple additional pieces of just printer paper from your parents' printer. So what you're going to do is you will take, I'm going to take this girl printout, and the first thing you're going to do is you are going to create your self-portrait of you using this outline. So what you're going to do is you're going to add more details. So what I can do first is I'm going to kind of draw a little bit of a neck here, and then sort of connect up to the ear, and then depending on your hairstyle, you might have, and if you have longer hair, you can make it longer and just color over that. Or you can leave it the way it is. It's up to you. When you're drawing with the pencil, you just want to color maybe nice and lightly, so that way if you need to make some adjustments, you can. So here's my hair. And then for the eyes, you don't have to get fancy. Sometimes what I like to do is even just use like little black ovals. You can give yourself eyelashes and eyebrows and a nose. And a smile if you want to. If you want the mouth to be open, you can do it like that. Maybe you just want the mouth to be closed, so you can do it like that. Or maybe you just want a little bit of it open. So it's totally up to you. You can even put little marks there. Then I'm going to decide, what do I have on? So if I put a little line, I can either do a line across here for a shirt, or I could even do like a V-neck, like this, a V for like a V-neck in a shirt. Maybe you have a dress on, so you could do it like this, and then that's the straps for the dress. And then maybe here's the sleeve to my shirt. And then maybe I want to add a fancy design on the sleeve. I can do that. Maybe you want to decorate the dress with different designs or patterns. You can do that. Shoes, you can draw in details of shoes. Maybe since the weather's getting nice, girls like to wear sandals. Fix that little strap there. Just gonna go curve, like that. So it's totally up to you how you want to add the details. And if you wanted to even get fancy, you could add the lines for the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do that. And then once you kind of draw it, if you don't have any other ways to color yourself, that's okay. We've talked about this before. You could color some things darker and some things lighter. So maybe this part of your shirt is darker, so you can take your pencil and shade that in. And this part would be dark too. And then I'll color this part here. So this is if you don't have markers or colored pencils or crayons to color yourself in. You can still do kind of a fun job with this by just using your pencil, and you can use lines to create textures. If you press hard, you can get a dark value like this. If you press lightly, I'll do that in a second, then you will get a light value. So let's say I'm just coloring that really nice and lightly. Maybe the flowers I'm coloring nice and lightly. Maybe the center part. All right. Now, if you do have markers or colored pencils or crayons, you can also use them to color in yourself. I think that I might like to use, some colored pencils because they have more of a pointed end to them, and my crayons are a little bit, the ends are a little bit worn down, and I don't have my fancy crayon sharpeners like we have at school, so it's hard to get a thin point. But if I use my colored pencils, I'm able to get a little bit of a thinner line. So I'm going to grab, my black pencil needs sharpened, but so I'm gonna add some color. I'm gonna put some lines, a little bit of brown. And I'll take let's see if I have a yellow. Coloring in my hair. I'm gonna try out, so I have this really interesting neon colored pink colored pencil. I'm gonna try that. Kind of coloring over the gray. Color in the dress. Blue. Oops, here's a green. It's like an aqua color. See that before? So go ahead, color in yourselves, make it look really nice. I'm gonna color in my smile. I happen to have sort of a peach colored pencil. fill in my skin tone. If you don't have this color, you don't have to worry about coloring in that part if you don't want to. All right, so finish coloring your self, and then I'll show you what the next step is. All right, now that you have your self-portrait designed and colored in, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple different options you have for the next part of the project. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut. So you're going to cut this part. So now you have, I'm going to kind of bubble around. So we have you, we have your shadow, and we have a big version of your shadow, and we have a tiny version of your shadow. So now what you can do is we are going to create sort of these little shadow puppets. And so in this paper is not like our drawing paper at school, and it's very thin. And so what we're going to do is we are going to glue these outlines to, let's see, they probably will fit on half a sheet of paper. So if you take one of your pieces of copy paper and you fold it in half, let's see if they'll fit. So we have 1, 2, 3. So they do fit. So what you'll do is you're going to take yourself, oops, you're going to turn it over, and you want to put a nice good amount of glue stick all over the back of this here. And then you're going to stick it down and give it a nice good massage. And you're going to take your silhouette, or not silhouette, excuse me, your shadow. It's like a silhouette, it's kind of an outline. And you're going to fit your shadow in here. Give it a nice good massage. If there's a little bit sticking up, you can kind of stick it back down with your glue stick. And then last but not least, we're going to do the little mini shadow. And stick that right there. Okay? So you're going to let those dry for a minute or two. And what I'm going to have you do next is we are going to cut, there's a line here where the fold is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors and we are going to carefully cut along that line. All right, so then these guys are going to hang out over here for a minute. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this other piece of paper aside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you fold this in half this way, like this. And you guys are familiar with that. It's like our little mini book. But what we're going to do is we are going to put glue around the outer edge of this, like this. And then you're just going to fill in the middle also with glue stick. You might say, why are we doing that? Well, then what you're going to do is fold this back over and give it a nice, good massage. We are going to be creating little sort of puppets, and in order to do that, you may have at your house, you may have drinking straws, which you could use, or you may have wooden skewers that you may ask your mother to use. But I'm going to show you how to make little paper sticks that you can use without bothering your mom or your dad for any extra materials. So now once I've glued this together, it's a little bit stiffer. Then what you're going to do is the hot dog style, you're going to fold it in half again. And same thing, we're going to take our glue stick and we are going to put glue all on the inside like that. I'm going to fold it closed again. Give it a really good massage. And then we're going to fold it one last time in half, hot dog style. And you're going to say, wow, it's getting kind of thick, Mrs. Herbay. And it is. And you're going to glue that all up and give it a squeeze. And then one last time. We're going to fold it in half one more time. Like that. So now we have, it's kind of like a paper stick, and it's really pretty nice and stiff. All right, and you're just going to let that dry. So after you've made one of these, depending on how many shadow puppets you want to make, you can take another sheet of paper, your last sheet of paper, and you can do the same thing again where you're going to fold it in half the hot dog style way. And then we are going to cut it apart along that line, nice little chunks. And then I have, and it's okay if it's not perfectly straight, but you're going to line up the corners again, fold it in half, and keep making your glue sandwich again. So we're going to go outline around the edge, fill in the middle, give it a massage, fold it in half again. I have a little extra glue that it squeezed out. I'm going to outline and fill it with, fill it with glue, give it a massage, hold it in half again, give it a squeeze, and then one last time. The last fold is a little bit harder because the paper is now pretty stiff. So then I'm going to put one more little swash of glue in there, and voila. So now I have another one. So now I have 1, 2, and you can do it with this remaining half as well. Now, what you can do is, once you have this like this, you can take your scissors, and once it's dry, you can cut down the middle, and it's really pretty stiff, and this is really going to give your little fingers a workout. But if you cut along down here like this, then now you have 2 sticks instead of 1. Okay, and you can do the same thing with this one. And now I have 4 paper sticks. All right. Now what you can do is, now that this is dry, we are going to go ahead and cut these out as well. So the first thing you want to do is, like we talked about before, we want to cut these apart from one another. So I'm going to cut my the self-portrait of me. I'm going to cut out the shadow, the big tall shadow of me, and then I'm just going to kind of bubble around this, the short shadow of me. So now I have all 3, me and my 2 shadows. So then I'm going to show you how to cut out around those. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to cut around, we're going to cut ourselves out of from the rest of the paper. It's a little bit tricky, so what I like to do is start at the bottom, and I'm going to cut around the feet. And then once I come here, then I'm going to turn my paper, make a little cut to there, turn my paper, and there. So now I've cut around the legs. Then I'm going to continue. This is really good practice for cutting with your scissors. I'm just going to go up in there. Now it's really tricky to turn it all the way around up in there. So sometimes what I like to do is just start down here by the hand again. And I'm going to cut up around the arm, turn the paper, and then snip into that armpit. And then this piece just kind of pulls right out there. So there's that. And it's a little bit tricky to go around the thumb. So I'm just going to leave that for now. And then I'm just going to go up. And around, turn my paper. Turn my paper. Turning my paper. All right, then same thing, I'm going to kind of go up the side here. Pull that out of there. And then the last little bit I have is around the bottom of the dress. And then I said I was going to go back and get around the thumb here. So I'm just going to kind of snip in there. Snip around. And then there's one little pokey piece, so I'm just going to snip that off. So there I am. Then you can take all of your scraps, kind of put them aside and into a little pile, because we're going to create some more scraps before you need to throw them away. And then you're going to cut out the other 2 shadows. And it's just the same thing, only this one is a little bit taller and thinner because this is your shadow. So again, you're just going to carefully, and then I'm going to come in here, turn my paper, snip, snip, snip around the thumb. I'm just carefully rotating my paper. I cut away some of the paper sometimes just to make it a little easier. Now I'm coming down this side. So I'm just steering the paper with my left hand, cutting with my right. If you're left-handed, you will cut with your left and steer with your right. Just turning the paper, turning my paper. And then I'm going to just cut up. And that's loose. And then there. So now I have me and my shadow, my big shadow, my big tall thin shadow. And then I'll give you a minute and you're gonna cut this little shadow out too. All right, friends, now we are ready for the last part. I had mentioned to you that if you had a straw or a wooden skewer, instead of making these paper sticks, you could also use these. Usually skewers have this pointy end on the end, and I'm sure your parents probably would not want to just give this to you, but if they do have it and they think it's a good idea, what you can do is you can have your mom or your dad just break off that pointy end and throw it away, and then you just sort of have these little wooden sticks, and they're not really easily, you can't really use glue with these, but you could put them on, turn your shadow up, around to the back, and then you could take a little piece of tape and you could tape the wooden skewer on, and then you have something that you can move around. So that's one option. The other option is you can take your paper sticks that you made, and now they're nice and dry and they're really pretty stiff. You can turn your little shadow over and your self-portrait over, and let me see, there's my glue stick. You can take your glue stick and put a little bit of glue on the back of this, like this. And I'm just going to take the stick, kind of center it in the middle, like so. And then I'm going to take another one, put a little bit of glue in the middle, like so. And you're going to let those, if you use glue, you're going to let that glue dry. Now there was also a sheet of animals, And I'm going to kind of show you some fun things you can do with these. You can, again, cut these guys out. I happen to have a bunny that's already cut out from the thing. And same thing, what you want to do is take the whatever animal you choose, turn it over, put glue on the back, and then stick it to another piece of your printer paper to give it a little bit of stiffness, and then let that dry, and then you can cut it out. These are trickier things to cut out, but here's the thing. You can use this as practice. And let's say you end up cutting off part of an ear or part of some things, or see how I'm getting a little bit of the black. That's okay, because you're practicing, and the more you practice, the better you will get. So during this time, this is a good time for you to practice. So I'm just doing our same turning with my scissors kind of staying forward. There's a tight little spot in here, so I'm going to turn it around, go up, come down, and there we go. Now, one thing that you could do with these are basically shadows or silhouettes of the animal, but if you wanted to, you could actually take the animal and trace it and draw it for real. So you could also use it to create, instead of just it being the outline, you could create it so that you do see all of the details. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can take another background sheet, and I know that I have given you the poem, My Shadow by Robert Louis Stevenson, and you can, maybe you want to create a background for this little shadow play. So what you can do is you can think about, what are me and my shadow doing? Where are we going? And you can create a background. All right, so we know that in order to see your shadow, it has to be a sunny day. So the first thing that you might want to include in your background for your shadow play is a sun. So I'm going to take my yellow crayon and draw my sun. If you don't have crayons or colored pencils, you could just use your pencil, and you could use the pencil to draw your details. The nice thing about these little puppets are that you could create different backdrops according to a different story that you make up with you and your shadow. Maybe it's a cloudy day and your shadow isn't there. Maybe your shadow is home sleeping in bed, like in the poem. Maybe you and your shadow go on an adventure somewhere, and so you draw the background of where you and your shadow go on your adventure. So it's totally up to you how you want to make your background. I think I'm going to draw a line going across here for some grass, and you can color that in. I'm not going to color it in now the whole way, but you can color that in. Maybe there are where's my brown? Maybe there are trees in the background. maybe there's a magical forest in here, and you and your shadow are going to go into the magical forest. You can draw, maybe you and your shadow are going to pick flowers in a huge field of flowers. So I want you to use your imagination, which is the most fun part of all, and to create your background scene. And then you can sort of act out a little shadow play. The other thing you can do is maybe your shadow feels small. And so your shadow, maybe it's a different time of day, so your shadow is shrinking and it's getting smaller. And you can talk about that. Or maybe you have some other animals that you want to include in the story. And so you could, maybe there's a shadow of a bunny, and the shadow is looking for the other part of the bunny. Maybe there is a lost teddy bear that needs to find the other part. It's just the shadow and it needs to find the real bear. So there's all kinds of fun things that you can do with this during the day. You can you could get another piece of paper and create another scene, sort of like in a play, and change the scenery. So this is just a wonderful time for you to kind of play and use your imagination. And last but not least, I'm going to end by showing you something fun that you can do with these little shadow puppets at nighttime before you go to bed, when your room is dark and if you have a flashlight. So as always, I can't wait for you to share your work with me, and I'm excited to see what you create. All right, so let's say you're getting ready for bed and you cozy up in your bed and you ask your parents either for a flashlight, or maybe their cell phone has a flashlight on it and they let you use it. So here is the cool thing. What I did was I took my shadow girl and I attached her to one of the paper sticks that I showed you, and then I took one of the dogs and I attached it, and I also have a kitty cat, and I made a teddy bear, and I made a mouse. And so what you can do is you can have all kinds of fun depending on where the animals are in relation to the light, and you can play around with, maybe the mouse gets bigger and the cat gets smaller, and the mouse says, "You can't chase me, I'll chase you." And then maybe the cat will say, "Not so fast there, mousy." And so you can kind of create like these fun little stories on the wall with the shadows. And notice how if I tilt them, oh my goodness, they get really tall and thin. And then if I tilt them closer down to the light, they look like this. So you can create these little stories. Maybe you have a story about a cat and a dog, and they're talking about what's going on maybe during the quarantine, like, how well have you been out for a walk lately? Actually, yes, I have. Well, there's not many cats around the neighborhood. They must be hanging around in their houses. Huh. Well, I get around because I get to go on walks. And then they can talk to each other. You can create these little stories, and then you can even, with your shadow girl, again, she can also tell a story. Maybe she says, "Hey, Teddy, let's go for a walk." Okay. And then they go for a walk. So this is just one other fun little thing that you can do with these shadow puppets. Or you can kind of turn them into shadow puppets by putting them on a stick or on a little piece of paper or on a straw. And you can kind of make these really fun stories.